Hey! Welcome back to another lore video. In this particular video, I'll be outlining Barbas' strange nature, his connection to the Daedric prince Clavicus Vile, and most importantly, why he's so vital to Vile's strength in the first place. So just sit back or lean back if that's your thing, and enjoy some fine-aged Cyrodiilic brandy whilst you're at it. All social media links will be in the description below. Have fun. Whilst venturing through the hold of Falkreath, one might expect to find a stray spriggan or rabid bear. But stumbling upon a walking dog that shows every sign of sentience is worrying and would most likely make you question your own sanity. But considering how often occurrences like these happen in the world of Tamriel, a fine and experienced warrior wouldn't really bat an eye. Barbas is the name of a dog that seems innocent enough on first sight. The dog claims he has had a falling out with his mysterious quote-unquote master, and that you, the player, are exactly the one he was looking for, so he could settle the disagreement. All while speaking in an almost euphoric and enthusiastic undertone, if it didn't seem creepy enough already. Barbas proceeds to claim that his master is actually a powerful Daedric prince, Clavicus Vile. The Clavicus Vile, child god of the morning star, the prince who grants wishes through ritual invocations and pacts. What a peculiar way to persuade an uninvolved stranger. Barbas mentions that, although Clavicus is powerful, he's weak without Barbas and that he currently can't manifest himself far from his shrine. This leads us to Haymar's Shame, a rather well-furnished cave that offers asylum to filthy vampires who worship Clavicus, protecting his shrine with their miserable and desolate lives. After putting an end to the vampire's existence, the player is only one step away from witnessing and talking to the highly esteemed Daedric entity of deceit, wishes, and bargain. An entity closely resembling a real-life mythological representation of the Son of God, Lucifer, or more likely known as the Devil. He immensely enjoys toying with mortals by engaging in various pacts and granting wishes that backfire on the wisher and that would ultimately grant the wisher's goal, but with the tendency to retract those wishes if he pleases or if it benefits his twisted humor. Mostly every conversation with this entity feels like a bargain, a deal of sorts, a task at hand that would benefit him and only him, otherwise he wouldn't even be interested in conversing. He likes meddling and fiddling with mortal affairs, more than anything. It provides him with an almost indescribable amount of joy. The thrill of letting fate and chance take its course after one's wish has been granted is what conclusively drives this Daedra, although not everything it does includes vile manipulation. He has been held accountable for often rewarding his devoted followers who at his will do his bidding. Nonetheless, his motives are still self-serving and narcissistic at the end of the day. Now, considering I just compared him to the real-life representation of Lucifer, why does Barbas and even Clavicus himself simultaneously keep talking about his inability to leave the shrine? How could such a powerful Daedra not be capable of leaving a mere object constructed by his worshipping mortals? He is adept enough to shapeshift, which is a common trait in Daedric princes, but there's obviously something hindering him from shifting into his usual self. His usual self being a rather smaller, amiable fellow with horns protruding from both sides of his temple. After a rather boring bit of dialogue, Clavicus sends you on a quest to bring him the Rueful Axe, a Daedric artifact of his own, which was given to Sebastian Lort, a Breton conjurer, which observed his own daughter being turned into a bestial mess, a lycanthropic form of misery. This axe is another perfect example of how this prince excels at deceit and trickery, only as a means to aid his humor, because for what else? The axe was given to Sebastian as a way of quote-unquote curing his daughter by killing her with the axe, which, as you would assume, wasn't successful, considering that her scene claims the souls of lycanthropes after death. Shortly after retrieving the axe, instead of being formal, Clavicus attempts to add more options to the bargain, offering you to kill Barbas with the axe, so Barbas could vanquish into the void to be reformed again, which could potentially be a painful experience for Barbas himself, thus repeating the cycle of his existence. If the player chooses not to eliminate Barbas with the axe, the reasoning behind Vile's entrapment becomes much clearer. The whole answer lies in Barbas, the hound he distinctively shows dislike for. Yet it's something that's clearly a crucial part of his existence. Let's not get it twisted though. Appearances can be deceiving, especially if you're dealing with a non-humanoid canine that can speak and who belongs to the Daedric Prince of Trickery and Deceit. Barbas, just like Vile, is a Daedric entity which acts as a source of Clavicus Vile's remaining power, making him virtually useless, except for shrine hopping of course, without his faithful hound. In other words, Barbas is another shape-shifting Daedra who technically assembles and conjoins Clavicus Vile's other half, and that other half being his honorable companion, a trusty hound. Many Daedrological circles from the Imperial City have vigorously debated this topic at hand, merely claiming that Barbas is only a servant to Vile. But even looking back as far as the Merethic era, every depiction and encounter of Clavicus Vile throughout Tamriel includes Barbas in a useful manner. Since Barbas is a shapeshifter, he has the ability to shapeshift into whatever is needed at hand. But his usual appearance is that of an unusually talented scamp merchant named Creeper. Daedrologists often describe him as a rational and quite reasonable being, usually warning innocent people of his master's vile plots, which indicates that he's a fully conscious and sentient being with free will. This undoubtedly bores the free and wild personality of Clavicus. He views Barbas as controlling and reasonable, which isn't considered fun in his humorous and rather perverted mind. Clavicus Vile has the ability to split off smaller portions of himself as to create artifacts or lesser Daedras. His ability to do that resulted in a lot of mishaps and mistakes, which in most cases end up destabilizing Vile's Oblivion realm. And if it weren't for Barbas' rational input on things, Vile would have completely lost control of his realm, multiple times in the past too. So, taking into consideration that Clavicus and Barbas are two entities conformed into one, the only question that actually remains to be answered is why? A famous Daedrologist that wrote The Vile Truth of Barbas, a book in the Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind, asks this question flawlessly. He wrote, "Why? Why would an entity possessing godlike power allow itself to be bifurcated?" He had numerous hypotheses on this, but one stood out the most. Companionship. A personality like Clavis is much more sophisticated than the other princes, not to mention his extremely charming and overly sociable nature. Clavicus thrives on interaction, someone to rely on, someone to vent to, and who better for that than a dog that has the ability to articulate himself, the portrayal of loyalty and submissive behavior. This is because of the complicated nature of power roles. If Clavicus were to proportion a larger share of himself, which in this case he did, he wouldn't have created an equal spirit, as to avoid plotting and controversy against themselves. Pelagius Haber, the famous Daedrologist we talked about earlier, even goes as far to say that one might view it as a marriage. Rather than two becoming one has become two. Clavicus claims that he gets tired of Barbas quickly, which stems from Barbas actually trying to guide Vile's moral compass in the right direction, and because Barbas has a tendency to interfere with his meddling. Clavicus views that as a huge annoyance, and according to his personality, that's more than understandable. This would certainly lead to Clavicus wishing to get rid of Barbas, which would only be achievable if another mortal executed Barbas' current mortal form with an artifact of Clavicus himself, successfully subjecting Barbas to the Void. Subjecting Barbas to the Void could alone cause permanent psychological damage to him, since death is painful, even for the Daedra. It would also hinder Barbas' ability to take on mortal form for at least another century or two. Clavicus' plan was to absorb Barbas' power after death, taking back what he thinks is rightfully his, the other fragment of himself, his other half. But Barbas is adamant about not perishing, simply to regulate Vile's already wicked ways of manipulating mortals. Killing Barbas leaves Vile to run unchecked for a couple of centuries, wreaking his havoc and perverted humor through various pacts. Clavicus Vile might be one of the most powerful Daedric princes, some even comparing him to the last Dragonborn. The only thing crippling him from fully reaching abnormal amounts of power is his utter lack of reasoning, poor perceivement, and plan execution, closely resembling that of a child, or actually a child. That lack of wisdom and judgment is fully showcased during his process of trying to get rid of Barbas. Barbas being the only sensible force that's actively working towards getting him engaged in more ambitious and resourceful projects that would benefit his upbringing to the title of the most powerful Daedric prince. The personality of Clavicus Vile without Barbas is like a distraught pupil without a mentor, a god run amok. After all, what would a prince do without his wise servant? Thank you for watching another one of my lore videos. I hope you'll enjoy the next one as much as you did this one. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me a tweet on Twitter.